oh my goodness, the puns. It was puns and jokes left and right. Didn't know what to make of him, but God, he ended up being a wonderful guy.
My first time I met him is actually with Rich, and the two of them had a lively conversation on politics. So I sat there. I didn't know if people were going to get upset or not, because anybody knows my husband, Rich. He will get pretty animated with his views along with others, and they actually agreed on a lot, and I was surprised because then I was talking to Kathy, and that's when I met her as well. And it's like, what in the heck? We are in two different camps here. And that was my first exposure to the family. And I learned from then that you can get along even when you're highly animated in your direction and your belief, you respect others and you will debate and everything, but you still love each other unbelievably as family.
Off of that, he's like the one man that can put my dad in his place and actually prove him wrong, and my dad just shuts up. But there were debates I always remember. He gave me great advice of college and like life and everything, but he was definitely, the few interactions I had, he was a great guy.
I could tell you that there's about 3 men that pretty much shaped what I know it is to be a man. When it comes to Mr. Leavitt, it was always a man's duty to his people, his community, and his nation. So he inspired me to go into the service, and inspires me now that I've gone into EMS.
And, you know, there were some things about Chris that I didn't really appreciate until I got a little bit older. And I wish so much I would have actually been paying more attention to what he was saying. And one of the things when we were in Solmeyer, Troop 20s, was everybody was ranting and raving about his ability to make things in his Dutch oven, particularly his peach cobbler. And I remember in Ship 24, he tried to tell us about it, and I didn't care. Well, I got into historical reenactment, and I thought it would be fun to learn how to make things on an open fire. And I really wanted to make peach cobbler like he made the peach cobbler, but I couldn't remember how he made the peach cobbler.
So Chris Leavitt, you know, who I always just refer to as Mr. Leavitt, you know, just like Onsemon always called him Mr. Leavitt. You know, he's always Mr. Leavitt to me. You know, some of my favorite memories were, you know, he had there was a birthday party. Everybody got their own individual pizza. I thought that was amazing, because that just did not happen in my house. You know, there was one pizza and you all shared it, and that was it. I joined Sea Scouts, and I remember seeing Mr. Leavitt. You know, there he was one of the counselors, or one of the leaders, and I was like, this is so surreal. You know, because this is John Leavitt's dad, and now he's like in charge of the scout troop, and John Leavitt wasn't even around, right? So it was like, you know, so I got to actually work with his dad, and got to know him. I remember for some inexplicable reason, I remember I was, it was like, you know, 2 a.m. in the morning, and I was wandering around Chippendale Lane. I was walking. I think I just went on a long walk and decided to sleep in Mr. Leavitt's backyard. I fell asleep on the hammock, and your dad wakes me up and he says, "Hey, that's a good way to get shot." And I was like, "Oh yeah, you know, this is still Texas." So I liked he brought me to reality, and he said, "Next time you need to go somewhere at 2 a.m., you can come on in." I was getting my CPA license, but in order to get the license, I had this issue on my record. But back then, you know, I was 19, and it was wild times. But you know, I went to the board, and I had to plead my case, and his letter was important for me to get that license. So it was really great that he did that for me. And being a scout leader held a lot of weight to it. Your dad was a great guy, and he will be sorely missed. And I feel for you, John. I feel for you, David. And no, that's it, man. So you're the guy now.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
We're at y'all's house off of Chippendale and Ella, and Mr. Leavitt is running the DM campaign, and it's an awesome story, and it's an awesome weekend. But I consider it a core memory, because anytime I think of Dungeons and Dragons or other games that we used to play there, I have vivid flashbacks of that weekend and how eager I was to get to the next part of the story, the next part of the campaign, and how you were playing and Mr. Leavitt were playing, which was so new for me, because it was usually just us and other people our age, kids our age, playing the game. I wasn't used to adults doing kid stuff, is what it seemed like. But Mr. Leavitt had this presence that was so great. Not only was he always who he is in being clever, but he would both demand your attention and keep the storyline moving and the game progressing without there being too much banter going off the rails, because in a pen and paper environment, you start telling stories, start joking, suddenly you're just laughing and making jokes for 30 minutes. But he would keep us on track in the most diplomatic and polite way. And he, at the same time, did his job as a dungeon master, because I remember at that time, I would try to get away with murder when it came to rule sets. So I had just found a source book that allowed me to play as a samurai, and it was like a medieval like campaign. And I was like, yeah, and he can like hide in shadows. And Mr. Leavitt's like, Oxamon, he's a warrior class, he cannot hide in shadows. Book shut. And then we went on, and he delivered, and I was like, you're right. That was ridiculous. I don't know why I tried that. And anyhow, it was, he had such a great presence and told stories so well that I try to invoke that level of presence as a game master whenever I play pen and paper these days, which isn't nearly as often. And I look forward to imparting those types of experiences to my son and his kid and his friends when he's a little bit older down the road. And anyways, I vividly remember that whole weekend and how we each had a pizza and we each had cups with our names on it. And there's one other part of that is other times we'd hang out, he would always be playing something really interesting on his computer, which was next to y'all's computer in the computer room. And one of them was XCOM, the original XCOM UFO defense game. There's been new sequels that came out, which I went through and 100%ed those games, remembering that when I first looked over his shoulder watching it, I was like, this is way too hard for me to understand what's going on. I could never play this. But remembering that as an adult, I mean, just in the last 5 years, I beat the latest iteration and was like, Mr. Leavitt did that. And so anyways, these are core memories of mine. And there's a slew of them more that are out there that I'd love to share when we have more time at another point. But